Hello and welcome back to the Association of Minority Healthcare Professionals Professional Development Series with Dr. Lou Edwards. And today we are talking about the art of self-marketing and building your professional brand. Welcome back, Dr. Lou.
Thank you. A lot of people, this subject so inspires me because a lot of people do not understand that you are marketing yourself and that you yourself, you are a brand. So today we're going to go over some of the strategies and the ways you can do it. If you're on our site, I actually give a detailed PowerPoint presentations
Yeah.
with slides that you can look over, download probably, and get even more additional information on that. So I guess
Fantastic.
we should get on ahead and get started.
Yes, we shall. Okay.
Okay. One of the things that people don't understand is that your personal promotion, your brand, who you are, is what advances your careers. We've talked about and we'll talk about in detail networking and your reputation. The field of healthcare is a small field, it's a
Yeah.
small world, it's a lot in it, but you will run across people that you met in other jobs. There may be a time when you need someone to give you a personal recommendation. And that's why you need to build your brand, build relationships, network with people that is at your level and above your level, because that will actually open more doors than anything else for you.
You said something a little while ago, personal promotion. What is that? I mean,
Personal,
why is that even important?
because honestly, there are statistics that show that at least 70% of job leads actually come from someone you know. So, how you promote yourself, how you carry yourself. I never forget my mentor said something to me that was so phenomenal. He says, Lou, you're interviewing in the break room. He says, as if I walk by the break room and
Mhm.
you're acting out of character, you may
Yeah.
want to apply for a job with me later,
Mhm.
but you've already interviewed with me in the break room.
I love that.
So, one of the things we need to understand is you are always promoting yourself. You know, you're always building your brand. Saks Fifth Avenue is
Mhm.
known
Yeah.
as a brand of quality and
Mhm.
excellence. One of the things I love about Saks Fifth Avenue, they'll let you return something 2 and 3 years after you bought it if the brand didn't hold up. So
Interesting.
one of the things, so people shop there because of the quality, because what it's
Yeah.
known for. So if I was to ask someone, what are you known for? Who are you?
Yeah.
What will people say? That is what your brand is. And
How how do you how does an individual define their brand? How do they, when somebody asks, who are you? How do you know that you are your unique you?
right, especially in the space that we're in, there are three unique things. You need to know what is uniquely you. What
Right.
makes you stand out from everybody else? What is something that no one else can do but you? And then you need to have specialized skills. So when people ask me, who are you? What is your specialty? I'm a business analyst. I'm a professional. I am a project manager. I know, we're going to talk about elevator speeches later, but I know who I am. And in 30 seconds, I can define who I am and what value will I bring to you. And then what is your character? You
Mm.
know, who are who are you when people talk about, it's not what your boss says about you, it's what your peers say about you. Because one day your peer may be a boss in another situation. So you have to really, I tell people, I make every 6 months, I evaluate my brand, who I am, and I make a list of what are my strengths, What are my weaknesses? What do I bring to the table? What are my attributes? If someone asking me, why should I give you this job? I can answer you
Right,
because
right.
I know who I am. I
Right.
know what I bring.
Right.
And so developing your brand, developing your own identity is so important.
So how do you said about you every 6 months you go over it, you rebrand yourself, so to speak. And then, okay, these are my strengths. 6 months from now, these are my weaknesses. 6 months from now. How do you identify those actual strengths? How do you do that? What is the process?
Well, number one is self-reflection.
Mhm.
A lot of times that you don't reflect on your truth. I actually do a 360 evaluation with my mentors, my bosses, my peers, and those people that report to me. I ask for honest feedback,
Yeah.
and because sometimes you may not see yourself in truth.
Mhm.
Now, I'm going to tell you something about that. One of the things about when someone is giving you feedback, you eat the meat and you spit out the bone. So I
Yes.
take the things that are meaningful
Mhm.
and truthful, or even could possibly be truthful, and the rest of it, I let it go. Some people don't. They hold on to other people identifying them as such. So
Yeah.
self-reflection, gathering feedback, and then look at where you're successful at and where you're not. If every time you turn around you're not successful at communication, that means that's not your strength. So there are classes, there are tools to build whatever. That's why I do my 6 month evaluation. I figure out what my weakness is. I'm not concerned about my strength, and then I build on it. So
Excellent, excellent. So what about now you've done that reflection, that you've evaluated that feedback, and you've accepted that, constructive, if you would, criticism, then what do you do next?
I craft my brand statement.
Okay.
Everyone should have a brand statement.
And what is the brand statement?
A brand statement is who you are, what you do, and what you bring.
Mhm.
It's as simple as that. It's who you are, what you do, and what you bring. And a lot for students that are just out of going out in healthcare,
Right.
who you are. You are a student who had a 3.5 GPA. What is your expertise? I am an expert communicator. I am an expert da da da. And what do you bring? I bring a unique perspective that I am retired military, which understand you know who you are. So I hate when people say, I have no experience in this. I have no, but you have a brand.
Yes.
You have a brand.
Yes.
You are unique. You
In-
bring something.
Interesting. Excellent. I love it. So now you've done all of that. You've created your brand. You know who you are. What next?
It depends on what level you want to be at. Number one, we talked about portfolios.
Yeah.
They are so important.
Mhm.
And we're going to talk in depth about how to build one.
Okay.
Your LinkedIn profile.
Mhm.
I check my LinkedIn profile all the time to make sure that my LinkedIn profile, I was looking at my LinkedIn profile for something today, and I have 6 recruiters that are reaching out.
Mhm.
I didn't reach out to them because what recruiters do is they looked on your LinkedIn profile and they hit some buzzwords
Yeah.
and they said, oh, she may meet my criteria. And honestly, I didn't reach out to them, but then I responded in LinkedIn and said, hey, yeah, here's my contact. Let's talk.
Right.
Because I'm always looking for better opportunities. I am not married to a company or to a
Right.
mantra. And then your social media.
Right.
I am very protective of my social media. You will not go to my social media and see anything but positive things about me and what I believe in and what I stand, because most employers now check your social media. And then there is something that people don't talk about, but as you climb the ladder in like vice presidents and presidents of organizations, senior directors, they have a professional website.
Yes.
And it's not expensive to do. It is where you put all of, I call it an electronic portfolio.
Yeah.
Is where you put all your information that someone can click and see everything that is related to you. So you build an online presence firstly.
So for those individuals who just getting into the field, students who just graduated, or those earlier careers, they're not at that VP level or AD level yet.
Right.
Would you still recommend a personal professional website, or is that even important? And if they should, how do they do that?
Well, I would recommend a portfolio.
Okay.
It's necessary.
Okay.
I would also recommend them having an electronic business card. That way you have your own unique QR.
Yeah.
You don't have to remember to carry papers. If you have a phone, they can scan your UR and go back and check it out.
Fantastic.
Or if you don't want to be techie, at least a business card. I don't care if you're a student. One of the gifts I gave to one of my classes that was getting ready to graduate a year ago is I printed them business cards.
Fantastic.
Because you need something to leave an impression with someone. So we're going to show you in some of our conversations how to build a portfolio. For those that want websites, we can show you how to build that. One of the unique things about this platform, Dr. K, is people can tell us what they need, because everyone may not need the same thing.
Everybody has to. So you talked earlier about their LinkedIn profile, and employers look at it. I mean, I'm guilty as charged. I do that. Somebody sends me a resume looking to be an adjunct instructor or something. The first thing I do is see whether they have a LinkedIn page, and if they've published any articles, if they have any white papers, if they're engaging in that continuing education, those micro certifications. But how do you optimize that LinkedIn profile?
What I would tell you is that don't rush it. If me personally, when you're at senior director, vice president level, whatever, you hire a professional to do your profile, because that is your statement of excellence. But okay, some of us aren't there yet, right? You may not be there. So take your time. Don't rush it. Make sure that your statement of who you are, that's where that statement that we just got to talk about is important, because that needs to be on your website. You need to make sure you have a professional photograph, not something your sister snapped. And there are AI tools that could give you 50 or more, and we'll be happy to share that information with you. Make sure that you're dressed appropriately in the picture. Make sure that you have a compelling headline, right? That would draw people in, and then have detailed summaries about the jobs and complete your experience. I tell people this: your education can be something that goes on here. If you completed a project successfully, if you got a green belt, if you things of that nature can build your LinkedIn profile. Then, secondly, make sure you're connected with people that are like in field. Because when I look at people's LinkedIn profile, I like to see who they're connected to, because that tells me the strength or the weakness of their profile.
You said something earlier about that headline. What goes into that headline? I mean, what actually makes it compelling? Because I've seen a lot of, again, going through LinkedIn profiles of individuals who sent me a resume to be an adjunct or a professional development, a mentor, and I'm looking at it, and it has nothing to do with the actual field they're in. So what makes it compelling?
What I would say is what makes a compelling headline is, especially if you are geared toward one set industry, is make sure that your headlines speak to what you are proficient or experting in. Because what I do is I go out and I check, like, my next job will be vice president. So I go out and look at jobs that has buzzwords, applications. I
Right.
take those buzzwords and I recraft my headline.
Interesting. Okay. Okay. Fantastic. Now that you've done all this, what now? How do you meet the people in your field that you are not in your field, but your desired field and the end goal? How do you do that?
You need to network
Okay.
effectively. You need to go to industry events. I know that your organization is going to be hosting
Yeah.
some of those. You've already started.
Yeah.
I belong to multiple organizations. I belong to a Six Sigma organization. I belong to a project management organization. I belong to a health administration organization. I belong to an administration organization for people that run hospitals and
Mhm.
hospital systems.
Yeah.
So I network, I go to their
Excellent.
conferences.
Yeah.
All of that's important. And then there is both virtual networking. Join some groups online. Make sure that you're active because those meet and greets can do a lot,
It's
especially if you passed out your card and
right.
made your presence
Yeah.
known.
So you're at a networking event, you're at those virtual groups, and a lot of people, because they don't have that experience or expertise, and they lose that confidence in, can I speak out? Is somebody going to hear me if I say something? How do you combat that?
I practice. I practice my elevator speech.
What is an elevator?
An elevator speech is something if someone wants to ask you who you are, and from the time you get from one floor to another, you have to tell them in the elevator who you are, right?
Right.
So that's why it's important that you craft your branding statement and then you practice.
Okay.
I personally think that learning how to effectively do public speaking is so important. I forget the name of the organization, Toastmasters.
Toastmasters.
I was a member and still am a member of Toastmasters, but believe it or not, I used to be very shy. So I joined Toastmasters to learn those skills. One of the things that the organization that we are part of is going to do is have Toast like Masters
Yes.
events so that you will get easier or comfortable speaking in public. One of the things I love about teaching is I make my students do presentations all the time because you got to be comfortable speaking at home.
Right.
And if you're not, you would never be able to speak anywhere else.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's awesome. So how do you created this professional portfolio? You stood in the mirror for 25 minutes every day practicing that elevator pitch. You've gone online and you've done all of that. And then now you go, okay, now what do I do with it? I have all of this about me. I have me. What do I do with
You
it?
start networking,
Okay.
you start reaching out, you start going on LinkedIn and seeing who is in your field. LinkedIn tells you suggestions about who's on your field. You join an organization so that they can connect you to another organization.
Mhm.
You start talking to people. You promote yourself.
Yes.
You are a walking, breathing advertisement of yourself. So all of that.
And so one of the other things is that individuals, they have so much information. And like you said, I think every one of us has a little bit of introversion because of, and it's not insecurity. It's
Mhm.
about, do we really know how will people will accept
Mhm.
what we're trying to share with them? And especially if you're in a room full of people who are experts like
Right.
yourself, right?
Right.
I mean, you go to those conferences and you have to present and you go, okay, these are all MDs, PhDs, EDDs. Are they going to accept? Is it going to be, received well? How do you do that ahead of, those types of events?
I think that's why groups and associations are so important. I think that you start small.
Yeah.
You start where you're at. Everyone wants to be on a big stage,
Right.
but can you master a little stage first? I think that starting to speak at local gatherings, volunteering, putting yourself out there, that prepares you for the big things later on. So don't hate baby steps. Don't hate small beginnings. They are what propel you to your next.
And what kind of events, not just events, but what type of actions can they take to actually do that? Do they just write white papers? At those small gatherings, what do they?
You can write white papers. One of the things that got me in is I volunteered. I went out and saw what volunteer opportunities it was. And I started volunteering, honestly, at at a facility just as a welcome person, a greeter.
Oh,
And
wow.
then one day I was volunteering during my volunteer work, and the president of the organization was in, and he was like, "Hey, what?" And we started talking. Next thing I knew, he offered a job. I didn't take it because I didn't want it at the time. But he knows my name. He knows my potential. I gave him my elevator speech. He started being a free mentor for me. So that helps. All of that helps.
Now, another thing that I've seen is a lot of students, especially, they come to you and, they want you to be their mentor, and they say, this is where I want to be. I want to be like you, Dr. Yu. I want to be like you, Dr. K. But then, you go to their LinkedIn, first of all, don't have one. And then you go to their social media, like their Instagram or their Facebook, and then you go, oh, well, I'm not judging, but here, we have a lot of work to do. Why is that important for social media? And how do
Well,
they use it to optimize and maximize where they want to be?
I think that, okay, you need to understand that it's okay to have a personal Facebook, Instagram, and there is a professional Facebook, Instagram, and or whatever.
Right.
And they should not meet. They should be different. I think though, in this day and age, regardless to if you're on your personal or your professional, there are things that I will not allow to be caught on camera because
Right.
because I may want to run for president one day and it'll come up again. So
Yes.
so you need to make sure that you're utilizing social media effectively and appropriately. Absolutely.
Excellent. And how do they do that? What do they make sure they do or not do?
Well, this is what I would say. If don't put nothing on social media that you don't want your mother to see. If you would not want your mother to see it
Why would the
or
rest
your
of the
boss to see it, don't put it out there. That's the first thing. Or your child to see it, and you have to explain it to them.
Why is this?
That would be the first thing. And then honestly understanding that Saks Fifth Avenue, they didn't start off as Saks Fifth Avenue where everyone knew. They build it. It's a day by day building of your brand. Stay consistent. Know your audience all the time. Track your performance. And if something isn't working, then change it. The insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result.
Right.
So if you are every time I walk out of my door, unless I'm going through mine, but every time I walk out of my door, I am always conscious of how I'm dressed, how I present myself, because people are always watching you. I'm not telling, be authentically you, but know that in your truth,
Right.
You're making decisions about what you want to do.
Absolutely. Now, earlier you talked about, that networking component. Go to those events where people or groups and associations match what you expect, in your future. And then you talked about feedback, right? How do you, one, get that type of feedback? And how do you get those recommendations to use to your benefit?
Well, there's a couple of things. Number one, on LinkedIn, people have the ability to give you a recommendation on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
That's important because you can then show on LinkedIn, oh, I got recommendations. Number two, I would say to you, how can I say this? when you're at these events, when you're at your job, when you're wherever you are. One of the things I find hilarious is in my job as an instructor, someone would have been a mediocre student, then ask me for a recommendation, and I don't know what recommendation. So understand that every day you're building your recommendation. You're building because it's character.
Yes.
It's about character. It's about integrity. It's about all of those things.
Yes, indeed. So how do you just go up to someone and, hey, Dr. Luke?
I think that people do that, but what I do is I would not ask anyone to write me a recommendation that don't know me because I want you to tell the truth of things. So I never get family to write me a letter of recommendation because they love me.
Right.
I built, that's what building those connections are. So I build connections with people and they know my work or they know my ethics or they know this. And then I can say, can you give me a letter of recommendation? One of the things I want to be in my career is I want to run a hospital. And there is an organization that is just for people that run hospitals who want to.
Right.
You have to be a fellow.
Okay.
And another fellow has to bring you in. And what I did is I spent the money. I went to New York. I went to their conference because you don't have to be a fellow to go to their conference.
Okay.
I networked.
Invest in yourself.
I networked and I left with 6 fellows. I only need one.
There you go.
So all
Absolutely.
of that.
Absolutely. So you've done all of that, right? And so you're starting to grow.
Okay.
What then? Not everybody will know you. They will know you within the context that you allow them,
Right.
and that you associate with them. How do you help them know you, what you've accomplished?
Once you have built a brand, protect your brand. So how people know me, sometimes people judge you by the people that you're associated. So I'm very careful who I give a recommendation to. That's why people don't get recommendations from me because you're not going to embarrass me or take away from my brand, right? So after you build your brand, you protect your brand, and then you really need to put yourself out there. This is not the time to become a shrieking violet. This is the time to step forward and really put yourself out there. But that comes with, as you do these other steps, you begin to know who you are. And once you know who you are, you will have no problem. The problem that I find with most people with this process, they don't know who they are. They don't know their strength. They don't know their weaknesses. That's why I hate when I ask someone on an application, what is your weakness? And they says, oh, I have no, that's a lie. Everyone have one.
Oh, yes.
But when you know it and you can articulate it and you can tell me how you're strengthening it, you got a job.
Of course. Another thing with to piggyback off of this, a lot of people, they will look at the weaknesses as negative.
Yes.
I had someone asked me, what are your weaknesses? And I told them it's my strength. And that is the truth. My weakness is I'm a go-getter. Yeah. I'm determined. And sometimes I don't stop myself at chewing off, more than I can bite. And that is my strength because at the same time, I will go get it. Right. It's a watch me kind of thing. Right. But at the same time, I've got Goliath standing here, right? And so how do you help someone, draw that distinction and stop looking at weaknesses as a negative thing?
It's interesting that you say that. My daughter do a self-evaluation with every 6 months. And one of the things I said was her weakness is she's tenacious. And she says, Mom, tenacious isn't a weakness. I says, yes, it is. It's a strength. I says, but for you, you don't know when it's you don't know when it's enough.
Right.
And so an employer isn't going to be mad about that
Right.
because that's a bonus.
Of course.
But you also need to know that you're tenacious and that that may cause you to have delays.
Mhm.
Another thing we don't do is effective communication. We need to know how to communicate effectively. We will be offering
Yes.
some things
Mhm.
in verbal communication, written communication. There are tools that you can use because that is so important to communicate effectively and efficiently.
Mhm.
So all of those things are so important.
So when you have individuals, we talked about a lot, and you have some individuals who go, okay, now I know what my strengths are. Great, I figured out my weaknesses. I practiced my elevator pitch. I've said it, but I'm still not getting that bite. I'm not. What do you do then?
Well, you get you a mentor
Okay.
because you may think that you've done all those things, but you
Yeah.
need someone outside to say, this is the next step.
Mhm.
The benefit to me as a mentor is you only know what is to the knowledge level of what you know. That's why you always get a mentor that is ahead of you. Because a mentor, you may say, I've done everything, and then you have a mentor to say, but you didn't do C, D, E, F, G.
Yes.
So make sure that you have someone in your life that is a mentor that can take you to the next step. Aunt Sally can be a mentor, not unless she is above you in the field.
Right.
Get you a she can be your encourager, but
Right.
not your mentor. Get
Right.
someone. I've always picked mentors that honestly make more money than me or higher, and because that way they can show me how to level up. You need a mentor. And if you want to always be the big fish in a small pond, you're never going to level up.
Absolutely.
So you got to go outside of your safety circle.
Yeah.
You've got to be willing to step outside of that.
That's one of the things that I tell students all the time. You have to give up everything that you think you know, because everything you think you know, there is something or someone else who knows more than what you already know. And you have to be open-minded to the fact that, oh my gosh, I don't know everything. When students graduate from the program, one of the things that is great, now you've graduated, you have all this information, all this knowledge, that theoretical concept. Now forget it. Right? Forget it all. Go out there in the field and see how it really works, because believe me, you don't know.
Absolutely.
You don't know.
And you have to be a lifetime learner and a lifetime student.
Yeah.
If you cannot accept feedback, this is not for you. I will tell you, you need to stay active and engaged. You need to make sure that you are actively a part of the organization. You need to stay actively engaged. You need to always be looking at your resume, always taking certifications. I'm always in a certification.
I know.
Yes.
I get those certificates every day, 6 of them. But with regards to staying active and engaged, a lot of individuals, well, I read the newsletter. I I watch the news, or is that enough? What
No.
does it mean to stay active and engaged?
Can they write an article for the newsletter? That's
There you go.
active. There's passive and there's active.
Yeah.
Reading the newsletter is passive.
Yeah.
Active is writing the next
Indeed.
article for the newsletter. If it's something in your community that you don't like, are you actively pursuing, trying to get it changed? Active means movement. So a lot of times people say, I'm active with the group. And I'm like, what did you last volunteer to do in that group? Just being a part don't mean that you're active. You're a part. But what do you bring? And everyone laughs because in dating circles we always hear, what do you bring to the table? But even in corporate America, I want to know what is in it for me. Right. An employer isn't there to grow you. An employer is there to pay you. and they need to know what are you bringing
For
to the
that
table.
payment.
Right, right.
Absolutely. Now, another thing that a lot of individuals, well, I'm just, and that word irks me
Yes.
sometimes when they say I'm just. Um, because I think when a lot of people say I'm just, it restricts them
It
to
does.
exactly where they are, and they're not looking for that growth component. So one of the vocabulary, I always say, stop using the word just, because
Mhm.
it's not just. But they will say, I sent an email, or I followed, or, well, have you stayed in contact? You sent the email when? Oh, 6 months ago, and I didn't hear anything. Oh, okay. Why,
And I
why is
hate
that
that.
important?
I hate that. I tell you, I'm picking on my daughter. My daughter is aggressive.
Okay.
If you interview, she's gonna send a thank you email the next day. And then 2 weeks after that, if she hasn't heard, she's gonna say, I just wanted to say hello again and remind you of my skills.
Right.
But she gets the job.
Uh-huh.
Why? Because she is, you can't just lay back and say, well, if I'm the best person, they're gonna
Right.
select.
Yeah.
And always improve your skills. That
How,
is so important.
how and that's another thing that I hear from a lot of people. Well, I have the degree.
Nothing,
What does that mean?
nothing. Because this is the thing. There used to be a time where bachelor's degrees were like, you got a bachelor's degree, whoopee.
Ooh,
But
yes.
now, for most jobs, a master's degree is the new normal.
Yeah.
But if you are getting those certifications,
Mhm.
getting those other things,
Yeah.
those are important. So formal education is always important, but online learning is important. Mentorship is important. Hands-on experience, volunteering at things is important. I had someone that was telling me, well, I want to work in HR. I says, well, have you went to a nonprofit and say, "Can I volunteer to work in your HR department?" Volunteer
Yeah.
all the time.
Yeah.
Stay on top of trends. Make sure you're reading industry publications.
Very important.
You do a great job with newsletters and whatever, but also your organization does. But also make sure that, like, I have healthcare administration manuals that sent to me.
Mhm.
You got to invest in your own career.
Absolutely.
Follow people that are thought leaders in the industry. And then really talk to your peers. I tell people in school that your cohort, the people I got my PhD with, they were my cohort. And in your first year, you meet your cohort.
Uh-huh.
And I'm still in contact with all 57 of my cohorts.
Absolutely. So one of the things that a lot of individuals talk about a lot is, personal values. And I would have, for example, someone coming for an interview and they talk about what's important to them as an individual. But when you look at it on a greater scale, well, this is a profession, this is a field. What are professional values, or why should they even care about having those professional values?
Because in healthcare administration,
Especially.
there is 4
Mhm.
that I believe are defining values. It's integrity. It's always acting ethically, even if no one sees you.
Yeah.
It in healthcare that is fundamental.
It is.
A spirit of excellence,
Mhm.
not based upon your boss saying that you're good or someone else,
Right.
but always delivering excellence.
Mhm.
And collaboration, always being open to work with people and collaborating, and innovation. Healthcare administration always needs innovation.
Mhm.
People that are thought leaders, that's thinking outside the box,
Yeah.
because that is the only way we're going to move this profession forward. So to me, those are professional values. That is the essence of healthcare administration.
You said collaboration. A lot of individuals, one of my actually, well, I don't know how to, or I've never had to work with people in the business office, because I'm in clinical. Well, how do you encourage individuals, even if those skills are, not the same or even in the same zip code, how do you encourage them to bridge that gap and collaborate?
I think that it's for me, my job is across multiple things. I
Mhm.
run a claims department, I
Uh-huh.
run an IT department, I run a lot of stuff.
Right.
But all of those teams are interdependent on each other. And I think that how you learn to collaborate is, if you're remote, it's harder.
Yes.
But if you're in the office, it's easy.
Mhm.
You around the water cooler
Right.
in the break
Right.
room.
Scuttle buddy.
So, hello, how are you? My name
Right.
is. What do you do? Oh, that's interesting. And in meetings, honestly, even because I work remote, in meetings, I'll see a new name, and so I see them in our window, and I am them. Hey, my name is,
Right.
and how are you
Yeah.
doing? And
Yeah.
welcome to the company. What do
Right.
you do? What
Right.
department do you work in? It's the little thing. It's not hard to network whether you're remote or not. It's just about making the effort and not being afraid to reach out.
Excellent. One of the other things that I hear a lot is, well, I have a loud personality. And it's interesting because in healthcare administration, especially we have the long-term care, we have the administrators who are public, high energy because they're always, like myself. And then you have the acute care individuals who are, just like Dr. Lou. So, you're looking at night and day here, right? And that's the God honest truth,
Yes,
right?
yes.
Bubbly, full of energy, so energetic, always hyped. And then
We are very business. We are very rigid.
rigid.
We are rigid.
But then that's the thing about it. For us, long-term care, for those of us in long-term care, we are those people,
Yes.
right? We're full of energy. But then people are like, oh my gosh, she just fired her just like that. And how she did that? And she was even smiling while she did it. Because again, we're focused on quality.
Yes.
We're focused on residents,
Yes.
safe
Absolutely.
residents quality. We have to always be ready for a lawsuit.
Right.
You
Right.
know, always be prepared for state. So how do you encourage individuals to show their true personality? But sometimes you do have some introverts who want to be long-term care because that's their passion,
Right.
but they don't know how to showcase their true personality.
I think that's interesting. That's did you say it because our personalities are as different as night and day. But that's one of the things you got to understand too. Does your personality meet where you're going? Because if I'm asked all the time to be bubbly, it's gonna emotionally wear me out. That's why I'm in the queue. But one of the things is you can still be warm even if you're not bubbly.
Yes.
So if I was an introvert and I wanted to go in that field,
Mhm.
I would craft things like uh, talking about showing the human side of me, talking about my hobbies, my passions,
Mhm.
what I'm passionate about.
Sure.
I will have sometimes in acute, we're business people through and through.
Mhm.
There may be a place for softness, but I haven't
Right.
saw it often. But you need to take who you are, never deviate from your authentic self. That's the first thing. Never deviate from your authentic self. And this is the thing. When people say other people are loud, is the problem that person or is the problem the person's perception? And whenever someone says something about my personality, I never forget someone says, one of my employees says, you're so cold. I says, how do you define cold? What is your definition of the word cold? She says, well, you're always business. I says, that's not cold.
Yeah.
That is, I'm always business minded,
Right.
but I'm not cold. So a lot of times, be careful when you're letting people put a word on you.
Mhm.
Ask them what that word means.
Yeah.
Don't take their definition. My favorite sayings is I never defend myself, I only define myself. I do not defend my character. I do not defend who I am. Okay, so I may be loud to you. What is loud to you? Because I'm upbeat, because I'm optimistic, because
Right.
I love your bubbly personality. I personally couldn't do it all day, but that is the essence of who you are.
Absolutely.
So I guess what I'm saying in a nutshell is take the authentic you into wherever you are and don't allow other people to mold you.
It's funny you said that because sometimes when I have to, when I'm so focused and I have things to accomplish, that bubbly person goes away,
Yeah,
right? And then, but are you okay? Especially people who do not know me,
yeah, yeah,
right? They don't know that I'm a shifter. I'm a shifter.
right.
You know,
You have
you
to.
have to be. You have to be. Point. And they don't know that part, and they just always see that. You know, hi, Dr. K, and then they come to the office, and I'm all, "You okay? Should I come back? Is everything
Right.
No, I'm just, I'm
Because
working."
but that's what professionals do. They wear roles. One of the things that my boss tells me is when he talks to my team, they say I'm warm. I'm joke with them.
And he's
I
about to
really-
fall off his chair
Right.
when he
He
has
says, but you never joke with your peers. You never play with them. That's a
Right.
different audience. So you
Right.
do different things for different audience.
Right. Exactly. Amazing. I love it. So when you have, you've gone through all the motions, done all of the good stuff, how do you know that you have been successful or at least achieving some form of that?
When you have people start a request uh, your LinkedIn profile, honestly,
Yes.
or
Oh my
when you have people that you don't know directly start knowing your name. That's why your name is everything. This
Right.
is the thing.
Mhm.
Your name will be spoken in rooms you're not in.
Mhm.
So be careful what your names mean.
And it's interesting you say that because I had to put my LinkedIn profile. You must be trusted. And,
Right.
I have to see what your profile looks like first before
Yes.
I accept it. Because what I found in when I was a careerist and as a student, people were just sending requests and you're just clicking yes, yes,
Right.
yes, 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 right? Or they would just follow you. Okay, do I really want 6,000 people? And I don't know who any of them are.
And they're not bringing influence and power
Or
to your
value,
brand.
exactly, love it. So how do you adapt now that you from a student, and one of the things that I did in the association, ask everyone to think once they sign up. And it's interesting you say that about the brand because one of the things that I believe that is important is to see where you started and where you end up, right? And you talk about refining your brand, refining who you are.
Absolutely.
So the first thing that they do is send that student biography. But how do you change or adapt that brand, that who you are, as you go through those stages of a student, careerist, professional, and then a master?
What I would tell students, you have to embrace change. The same people I associated with when I was a student, I cannot associate with in someone, a speaker said something at a conference I will never forget. He says, as you climb, your circle becomes small. So embrace your circle change. Embrace the change in you and be honest with yourself. Some people stay in the small pond because they could be the expert there.
Yeah.
But every time I have everyone coming to me as an expert, I jump out of that pond into a bigger pond. You know why? Because the bigger the pond, the more it forces me to grow. So embrace growth.
Makes sense. And how do you're in that huge pond, okay? And it's filled with everybody else who knows as much as you do, or even more, right?
Yeah.
How do you ensure that you get the information that you to become that person, or, to change your brand, readapt, restructure, if you would.
Become a seeker.
Mhm.
Become a seeker.
Okay.
I'm always seeking knowledge. I am always seeking. A 4-year-old can tell me something.
Yes.
I'm always open. And I'm gonna tell you the secret to getting people to open up to you is when they see that you're not coming guarded, they'll give you the world. I had an investment banker sit down with me and tell me secret of trading because I was open. And all he required, he met with me 4 weeks, and he says, all I require is every day you bring me a meal.
Oh, nice.
And I would drop off a meal,
Wow.
and
Okay.
he told me how to invest. So,
Interesting.
but a lot of time we have these walls up and we're
Mhm.
trying to be an expert and we're
Yeah.
trying
Yeah.
to leave that bravo behind and have a
Yes.
spirit of humility.
Yes, absolutely. And that is one of the things that I always, my papa, rest his soul, um, always said to me that, you know, that one of the greatest traits of a great leader is being humble. Humble enough to know that you can always learn. You're a sponge. You always learning. And that's why those continuing education, those certificates that, those micro certificates, everything, because you never know anything. And when you feel that you know everything, there is someone out there who knows more. And that's why that analogy of the pond, for me, it really hits home, because again, we never know.
And we can't. One of the worst things you can do is to be in the big pond and you're trying to act like you're a shark, but you're a minnow.
You're right.
Um, I've learned to humble myself, and I have no problem humbling
You
myself.
have to.
And when I do, people open up and they
Mhm.
give you the best version of
Of
themselves.
course.
But if I'm up there, oh, I'm all this and oh, I'm all that, that no one is going to want to help you.
Exactly. And that is one of the things that I think for us in the association, our mentees see that, oh my gosh, they're willing to help. They're willing to, why would Dr. Lulu as a VP or Dr. Kim go, why? Because it takes an understanding of humility and a practice of humility to know that if somebody's asking from us and we know it, we have to be genuine in sharing it, because somebody did that for us, right?
Absolutely.
We have mentors.
And one of the things that we're expecting from the peers that are here or the students
Okay.
is that they do the same thing.
Yeah,
I am not pouring into you so you can be a pitcher and just keep it to yourself.
you have to
I am pouring into you so that you can pour
share
into
with
someone else.
Yeah.
I would, one of the things that my employees, they get, this is you withhold no knowledge.
Mhm.
Absolutely not. You know why? Because I want you to have all of it. And
Right.
the reason is I can go get more.
Absolutely, right? Isn't that and the thing about it too is this: we keep it, they hoard it in that picture, right? And then what happens when something new comes along?
Right. You have no room. And because I'm always pouring, I'm always receiving.
Revealing, yes.
And so
Absolutely,
that
yes.
that is the key to success. Always pour so you can always
Always
receive.
Absolutely. So before we end here, Dr. Lee, what are some of, what would be some of the takeaways that you would recommend, things from this session that you want individuals to remember?
Define your value. That's the first thing.
Mhm.
Not what your mama say, not what your cousins say,
Right.
not what that teacher that was mean say. Who are you? Define your value, because if you're on earth, you have value. So if you can't help, if you don't know, ask someone else to tell them what do they see. Someone you trust.
Right,
Be,
right.
be constant in building your brand and building your presence.
Mhm.
Balance being strategic in your brand with being authentic. Don't be a Dr. K.
So,
Be you.
be better than that.
And remember that you're always evolving. If you're not growing, you're dying.
Yeah, that's so true.
So always
That's so
grow.
true.
Those are the 4 key things I would like them to walk away with.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you. This is great.
This is episode 2. Episode 3 next month, we're going to talk about building a professional resume, building a professional portfolio. So join us again. Dr. Lou will continue this as we continue this professional development series for those, valuable insights that will guide you through that professional development process.
And one of the things we will be offering is a presentation on resume building. We're going to give samples of a beginning resume in healthcare administration, a middle, and a more advanced. But you can probably only get those samples if you're a member to the site.
Yes. So everything we're talking about today is online on our website. Sign up, become a member. You will have full access to those PowerPoints, full access to Dr. Lou, and full access to all the resources that are available for your growth and professional development. Excellent. Thank you, Dr. Lou, and we will see you all in our next Building Your Professional Resume.
Thank you. Bye.